Welcome to Warp Zone, a podcast on sci-fi, philosophy, religion, politics, gaming, and anything else taboo.
Taboo.
Hey, so we're joined today. Well, first, I'm Ben Banasik, joined with Tara Smith, not the Tara from A Tara's Tale, but another Tara.
It's going to get confusing, but that's not me.
A non-saved being, someone who is attached to the cult of money, if you like.
Yeah, so that's me.
That's Tara Smith.
Not to be confused with the Tara on the right path, right?
The right path, yeah.
Yeah, and we are joined with a very special guest who has come in for a second time, Geraldine Smith, down at Tasmania, which I'm sure is quite cold at the moment.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's actually not too bad today, but we did have snow the other week, which, because of climate change, is the only time we've had snow this winter. So.
Yep. Do you normally get it more?
Well, I spoke to a man at a laundrette, and he emerged from this door behind, out of nowhere, and started telling me that there used to be snow from April all the way to October when he was a kid. So I was like, shit.
That's pretty crazy. And
it doesn't sound like the most veritable weather person to be hanging around in a laundrette behind a door. But I mean,
isn't it the word laundromat? What the hell is a laundriette? I don't know.
I don't know. I see two different ones. I see laundromat and laundrette around.
Laundrette. Here. What do you say?
Oh, you've gone robotic. Is it me that's gone robotic?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not getting the thing coming up. Just hang on. Tom, are you playing the game? Can you not? Because it's making the data. It's just screwing the internet.
We're leaving this in.
The peril of kind of doing everything at home. So.
Yeah. Someone's playing the game.
Would you say laundrette or laundromat, Ben?
It depends if I'm talking to a woman or a man, I suppose. It's the masculine or the feminine.
Right.
Or if the laundromat or et is masculine or feminine. You have to check behind the skirt and see what you want to call it.
Yeah. Well, Ben, do you want to explain to our listeners why we're talking about what we're talking about today?
Sure, yes. Okay, so last week or last fortnight we were talking about Scientology, and then we watched a little bit of Ronson, and we wanted to watch some more Ronson. So Jon Ronson has a documentary called Kidneys for Jesus, which is about the Jesus Christians. And Tara had not seen it before. You had not seen the documentary before?
No, but I watched it, not this time, but I watched it when I was watching all the other Jon Ronson one. I thought I'd just dabble in because I'd heard you mention it. So
yeah.
Plus, I have an interest in Jesus Christians because of Jerry, so I wanted to watch it.
So then we thought, well, let's return to the Jesus Christians, and it turns out by chance or good fortune or luck or whatever it is, divine providence, they have released their own documentary called Tara's Tale.
Tara's Tale.
Tara's Tale, yes.
Yeah. And is this their first documentary, Jerry? Or is it I know they produce a lot of material, but is there something different about this one?
They've had other documentaries, they've had a 2-part documentary that was just generally on their lifestyle, and that was and they've done a lot of other videos that kind of maybe border on documentary style, but this has been probably the first documentary they've done on an actual experience of someone returning home as a member of the Jesus Christians and having a run-in with a cult buster.
Yeah, who's quite infamous, isn't he, with the JCs? What's his name again?
Rick Ross, not to be confused with the rapper.
Rick Roll, Rick Astley.
So Rick Ross was also involved in in Waco, the Waco siege, and I think there's some suggestion that because he advised the FBI that because he obviously he saw them as a cult and dangerous, that he had a hand to play in the violent response by the FBI and the other department, the drugs, alcohol, and firearms department.
Was he there as a what do you call them? Like a de-escalator or whatever? Like, is that was his role?
I'm not sure.
Like he was the one with the megaphone.
I don't know. I think it was just advisory role.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's true. Like,
and he.
Yeah.
And he does these kind of quite controversial deprogramming.
Yeah.
According to the.
Yeah. So a lot of people like him, the deprogrammers, because of all of these court cases that came out against them, saying you can't kidnap people and physically torture them, like just because you're a cult buster. They started to kind of change what they called themselves. They don't call themselves deprogrammers anymore. They call themselves exit counselors.
Right.
Which, I think I can understand that is actually a helpful thing for some people. Like if you do leave a group that you've been in your whole life and you don't know how to assimilate back into the normal world, having that is probably a good thing. But a lot of them still practice deprogramming, even though it's very like under, not, they don't do it publicly, and they're very conscious of the law. And in Tara's story, you kind of there's kind of a hint that Rick Ross is kind of treading a line between kind of stepping over into doing something illegal and trying to like keep off from doing that. So like he advises the family when she escapes the second time not to try and force her back into the car, because that's going to be physical coercion then. But they just follow her with like a bottle of water as she's like running through the Texan desert. They're like trying to get her back in the car by promising her water and food and like, oh, we'll take you, if you come back with us now, we promise that we'll take you to the airport or we'll take you back to your friends. And
yeah. So I guess we should go back a bit. Well, first, should we do the catch up, Ben, and then get into it?
Yeah.
Or should we skip that today?
I don't mind. All right. So we've done this like twice in a row now, jumped into a topic because we've wanted to talk about the topic.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. But we haven't spoken to Jerry for quite some time.
Yeah. So what's been going on?
Well, Tasmania, I'm very lucky because there's no COVID cases in Tasmania at the moment. So life is pretty normal. Yeah. So I have a feeling that because everyone's so relaxed and they're like, oh, we're on the Blessed Isle and, we're going to keep the borders closed and we'll be protected, that like when the borders do open and COVID comes back, because it will, I think it'll be the next hotspot because everyone's become so relaxed and so kind of, it feels like COVID kind of feels like it's the mainland's problem at the moment. But I have a feeling that the borders probably won't open for a while because for a lot of Tasmanians, this is like their lifelong dream to be cut off from the world. So,
it's like Western Australia. Western Australia cannot wait to get rid of the eastern states. They're like, yeah, we're our own country already anyway, so whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. But I've noticed like amongst like my Tasmanian friends, they're all like, yeah, the border's closed. Woohoo. Like, this is great. Like, I don't mind it being closed. And then amongst friends that are like come from overseas or the mainland, they're like, please get me out of here. Like, please, we need to escape just for a few days. Like, because I haven't seen my family for a while, and it'd be nice if the border was open to visit. But I'm also happy that I don't have to worry about COVID here, so that's lucky. And other recent news, my housemate adopted 2 kittens, just like everyone else is doing during these times, adopting animals. And they've kind of become the center of our lives at the moment. Like we just, probably like 90% of our conversations is observing what the kittens are doing. Like, oh my God, Possum just like jumped on the couch, like, like that's so funny.
So what's their names? There's Possum and the other one?
Pigeon. Pigeon makes like a really cute noise all the time, like a bird, like a.
Yeah.
It's really cute. Like, I didn't know that I liked cats, but now spending time with these two, they're like, I think cats are pretty good.
Mm. That's the best.
Yeah.
They are the best.
Yeah. Ara, what have you been doing?
Well, I went to a medical study. Yeah, so I just got out like 4 days ago. So 9 days testing a drug with another drug. Didn't come out with any new limbs or any weird side effects. So it's a win-win, I think. Nothing else really new. We're going to buy some furniture tomorrow. I'm going to buy some desks for the house.
Why don't you buy
It's exciting. Hey?
You should buy a candy cab. Like an arcade
Nah.
machine. Yeah.
Nah.
What?
Look,
what's
behind
that?
me. I'll do a show and tell because everyone loves it. See that? That arcade cab?
Yeah.
That's like a desk built
I
in.
don't want that in my house.
Mm.
You do.
But for those listening, Ben is pointing to a large arcade machine.
Yeah. I'm now furiously pointing at every part of it. So
Why did you call it a candy cab?
that's what they're called.
But there's no candy.
They were referred to that because they're like cute and seen as like almost kids things.
Cute.
Well, if you look at like, you've seen those big monstrosity cabs, like the big ass massive things.
Yeah.
And there are actually smaller versions of them which were candy cabs, and then these were referred to candy cabs. But you see the control panels, there's always like bright colours on
Right.
the screens are very bright. You'll get to know it when it's in your house and you've borrowed it off me. It'll be fine.
Yeah, that's not
You'll
going to
love
happen.
It's got a desk in it. I'll send you the measurements. We'll find a way to get it in there. It'll be fine.
Where's the desk in it? What desk?
The control panel.
Well, I
That's not
can't
a
work
desk.
at that desk. What are you, crazy?
I have. You can.
But what? There's
Little
like buttons and
underneath.
shit. There's like little
Yeah,
nozzle things.
Your laptop can be just nestled in between the two sticks. Yeah. And it's perfect.
Oh my
And then
God.
when you've finished with your computer, you move it and then play on the arcade machine.
Yeah, okay. So it can
Right,
also
I
use
see.
like a dinner table,
Dinner table, yeah.
changing table.
Yep, I've got photos of Hannah when she was like 3 weeks old lying across that specific cab. Like I just put her asleep across it and was playing games while she was like lying across.
Amazing.
It does everything.
But no, nothing else really happening. I enrolled in a graduate certificate in higher education. I don't really know what that means, but I decided to have another qualification. Why not? Why not just do it? So I'll let you know how that goes. Ben, so you've got a storage shed.
I do.
believe.
Yeah,
It's your
I've
news.
rented my storage shed. So finally, after 2 years of amassing lots and lots of arcade machines and screens, Jodie and I have bit the bullet and said, okay, well, we're going to seriously do this. We're going to be in this business for a long time. We've survived COVID and everything. So we've got to think about what we want the business to be. And that's going to be arcade, TCG, board game, and video game store. And because of those four things, there's a lot of storage space that you need for that type of business compared to what the old model was. So we rent a small storage facility in Picton. I got the lock here, right next to me. Another show and tell. See,
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
the blue lock. It's an Able lock, laminated. I don't know what laminated. Why you need a laminated padlock? I don't know. But it's got anti-pick tumblers. There's lots of stuff with it. It's a fancy.
Ooh.
Nice.
But it's in a secure place, and it's like got lots of cameras around it, and there's insurance and everything, so it's all good. So as part of this, I'm buying 4 arcade machines this week, I think, from Queensland, and I'll probably buy another 2 from Melbourne next month. So just getting them, restoring them, putting them in storage, and then ready for when the lease changes over, or just using it to switch over the arcade machines in the shop, which is kind of cool. And Jerry, since you've last been there, I think Tara, you haven't seen it since the changes, but I've got 6 of my machines in there at the moment, so it's quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's more like people there to like be entertained rather than buying products.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of our sales now are from single cards, so people are going through folders and going on a computer, which doesn't take up much space. So we've got rid of a lot of that older, pop vinyl type of product. We've still got a little bit of it, but it doesn't take up many gondolas. So we removed basically a third of the shelving out of the store and had all of this empty space. And I filled it with cabs, and it looks a lot better now. Got carpet now as well.
Wow.
It's lovely. And we were putting shelves up yesterday. Rune was doing it, and they're the shelves we got were like shoe racks. And Leo, one of my young staffers, he's like, "What are these for?" No, actually, a customer said, "What are those for?" And Rune's like, "Oh, it's a shoe rack. We're going to put it at the front door so that people, when they come in, they can leave their shoes there." And they thought that he was serious. He's like, "Oh, yeah, that could work." Pretty funny. Yeah. But yeah, we've got things all organised, and it's busy times at the shop. Busy.
Yeah. Wow. So you've adapted to these challenging times.
I have. Oh, I have other news actually as well. My friend Mark Bell screwed up my my world record attempt. Just slightly. He's not completely to blame, but he's partially to blame. So I went for the max out of columns for the PAL Mega Drive, which takes 9.5 hours. And at 9 hours and 20 something minutes into it, Mark said, "Hey, I like how your jacket's half off." And then I looked down like this, looking down at my shoulder. And as I did, I pressed down on the control pad and then lost.
Oh.
Yeah, that wasn't great.
So wait, what's the record again?
It's maxed out, so 99 million repeater 9. So 99,999,999.
Of what?
Points. So
right.
You're doing it for points. So it gets fast. It gets as fast as it does get, about an hour in. And then you can't pause it, take any breaks, or look away from the screen for extended periods of time for the full 9 hours.
Wow. And you did that?
Yep.
How'd you feel at the end? Knowing that you'd
lost pretty bad. I was pretty shitty for at least 48 hours, and it's been about 48 hours. So,
right.
Yeah.
Are you going to do it again?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do it maybe this week.
Were you like getting sustenance given to you as you stare at the screen for 9 hours? Like,
good question.
Was there like people patting your like forehead?
No, so I have next to me a water bottle, which I didn't have any water throughout the period.
You obviously don't want to go to the toilet either.
Yeah. And I had a plate, and on the plate I had cut up protein balls into like eighths. So like little bits of protein balls, and then Joels. I don't know if you know the Lollies Joels. I had some of those. And then I found some chocolate chip cookies. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So I got 3 cookies and then cut them up. And like I'm calculating the amount of energy you're going to need over the period, but not needing to go to the toilet as well. So yeah, I had just like sugary type of snacks in this little tiny bowl. And that's all I could have the whole time. So as I'd go through, I'd like almost reward myself. After doing half an hour, I'd have like one thing, and then another half an hour and maybe another thing. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And is that going to make it into your PhD? Is like a order ethnographic thing?
Yeah. So I've spoken to people about how they've done it, and it's funny how every person that's done a world record attempt of a long play thing does things very differently. I haven't spoken to Tim McVeigh yet, who does the nibbler thing, but his is the worst. He drinks like the equivalent of Australian V drinks and eats mac and cheese whilst he's playing. Like it's quite disgusting.
He's not smashing any stereotypes, is he?
Yeah.
He might as well get a solo.
But he's got a movie which is Man vs. Snake, and he talks about in it like when he was a kid and he felt like really rotten, and so then he went home and his mum made him a bowl of mac and cheese, and he ate the mac and cheese. He felt better, then he lied down on his bed and then slept for 2 days, like after doing his test. And then went back to the arcade and then won, like got crowned the champion. Which is very funny. But yeah, he's a really funny guy. So there's him, and then there's like Mark Bell, who stood at his arcade machine, didn't bother to get himself a drink or water or food or anything, and then just stood there and played until Fiona, his wife, came home, had dinner ready, and then he felt like his sternum was going to collapse. So there's many.
Right.
How long was he playing for?
Oh, it's like 8 hours.
Wow.
The 8 hours is different to mine. Mine's sitting on a couch with a control pad, like small movements. His is standing at an arcade machine, jamming on a button constantly. So that action, it's just like doing like repetitive stress action, even if it's a little bit, and it starts to affect your chest. And
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. And Mark's, you know Mark, like we all know he's quite a tall guy, and he's hunched over a machine, so he's like, his back would have been killing him.
Yeah, but I'm sure his shirt was on properly.
Yeah. Jacket gate is what it's being talked about on the Discord now.
Amazing.
Yeah. So yes, I will talk about it a little bit in my PhD, I think, because I think it's interesting that people approach the games with in different ways. John Tannehill, who's got the record for Space Invaders, is probably the most like me. He prepared like playlists for himself, and he wanted something that he could rock out to, but that also something that would keep him awake. So he chose girly electronic pop. So in his Space Invaders world record, you can hear like electronic versions of Britney songs and stuff in the background.
Wow.
Yeah. And that kept him like awake and able to count, like, because he's counting in his head the number of shots and the number of ships he's destroying and stuff for Space Invaders. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to prepare a longer soundtrack, because I only had the Tetris Effect soundtrack on repeat for 9 hours, and that is an hour-long soundtrack, but it got a little bit repetitive.
Did you dream that, like at night, that you were still playing?
Yeah, I used to as a kid. I don't as much anymore because I played so much of columns. But yeah, it's just natural to me. Like now, but yes, you start to see the colors and see the patterns of what you have to do. But then after like 6 or 7 hours, you're making mistakes because of the fatigue, and also you can't see the patterns as well. So sometimes it slows down.
Okay.
And then you'll get back into the mode and it'll be faster. So it's,
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, so 9 hours wasted. It's okay. I've got heaps of time.
Just practice for next time.
Yeah. Great. My grandmother called me up yesterday and she's like, please don't be upset. Just try next year. It's okay.
Oh.
I don't understand it, but it'll be all right.
Oh, that's sweet.
All right, should we get stuck into it?
Yeah. So let's go. I want to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about Jesus Christians. I also want to talk about Dave McKay personally, and like the personality cults, if you like. And I say cult in a non-derogatory way, but the personality type religion. So maybe, Jerry, do you want to give just an introduction to the JCs, what their history is, and then just a quick recap of where they are today?
Right. So the reason I'm connected to the JCs, just to remind everyone, I did an honours project on them. So it was about a year where I did field work with them. I spent a lot of time with them, spoke to them about what they believe and their practices, and I participated in some of their practices as well. So they're probably best described as a radical Christian group. There's only probably less than 100 worldwide of JCs, and they're spread out over Australia, the UK, the US, South America, Europe. Like, they kind of move around a lot. They're very nomadic. A lot of them live in camper caravans. Some of them live in actual houses. And they all live together. So it's a 24/7 life. Once you become a JC, the community, that's your kind of your family, like that. You do everything together. You leave your previous friends and family. You leave your job. You sell all of your possessions, and you go and live in community. And that can be a kind of that's where a lot of controversy lies. Is that process of leaving everything in your life to join. So just a rundown of what they believe. So the JCs will tell you that we actually follow the teachings of Jesus. And I know saying that to a lot of people, it's like, oh, what are you talking about? That's what all Christians do. Why are they saying that they're Jesus Christians? For them, they take what Jesus said literally. So they're not interested in Paul and all of the things that come after. They're not interested in Acts. These things all are part of their theology, but the teachings of Jesus, as it's told in the 4 Gospels, is prioritized as their main source material.
There's certain things which are prioritized. This got to the conversation I think I was joined in with Dave and yourself at some point, so it's the Sermon on the Mount, but it's not the fellowship of the faithful or the continuation of the meeting of 3 and he will be amongst them, nor the practice of communion so much. So it's just that Sermon on the Mount speech. So it's almost like it's not even a Markian view of Christianity, but they've handpicked different parts of Jesus's words through the 4 Gospels. Yeah.
So I should clarify. I'm giving a kind of inside perspective of who they are. It is an interpretation. It isn't, the actual truth. They'll tell you that they're following the real thing, the real Christianity. But it is, from an academic perspective, it is just a interpretation. So the way this manifests is they don't work for money. So they think that if you're working for money, you're not working for God, which is another area that really freaks people out. The way that they survive is that they do a lot of distributing of their literature. So they produce DVDs and books that have what they teach, and they distribute it on the streets, or they do a lot of online work. So they go on YouTube and create a lot of YouTube videos and social media. And so they get donations when they go out and distribute. And that's how they kind of sustain themselves. But they do live a very simple lifestyle, very frugal. They bin raid for their food from supermarket bins where they can.
You make some freegans, yeah?
Yeah, they're freegans. They're bin raiders, dumpster divers. So you can't have a job. There's lots of other little things they try and be very egalitarian, so they don't like rigid leadership structures. They kind of they're also really influenced by the Quakers, so there's a lot of similarities with what the Quakers do. So they don't use titles. They don't say doctor or sir or miss or mum or dad, because those are titles, and that's creating a hierarchy. They believe in everyone being equal. What else? They don't do any rituals, so they don't go to mass on Sunday. They have a rest day on Sunday, but they don't have communion. They believe that if you start having rituals, that you're creating an institution, and if you have an institution, you're worshipping an institution. You're not worshipping God. So this is why they have a kind of a bone to pick with most of the rest of Christianity, because they see a lot of Christians worshipping an organization or an institution rather than Jesus specifically. So they're very uneasy towards prosperity theology and prosperity preachers who kind of say, if your goodness with God is indicated by your wealth. So they they're kind of a coming out as a rejection of that. Yeah. What else? What else have I think I've mentioned everything. Oh yeah, no one owns any possessions. It's kind of everything's shared. Yeah, I think that gives a picture of what they're like.
So the ownership of everything being shared. So to take a couple of steps back, how were Jesus Christians created? What's Dave McKay's? How did he do this, and where did it come about?
So Dave and Cherry McKay moved from the US to Australia when they're in their 20s. They're in their 70s now. And they started off just doing kind of humanitarian work with Indigenous Australians. And it slowly developed where they started to kind of experiment with this concept of following the teachings of Jesus that they would tell you. And it began, and they had 4 kids. And they began to kind of collect people who became interested in what they were trying to do. So they started off by doing a lot of culture jamming, which is like trying to like disrupt people's being asleep and like kind of wake them up to the world that they're living. So that can be done through art. So they did a lot of graffiti campaigns where they would change billboards and like repaint them to have a different message. And they graffitied the Devonshire Street Tunnel in Sydney. And did a lot of performance. So they went out and would throw money to people and say, take the money, or they'd make it into little paper planes and throw money into the crowd. They'd stick money on the ground and say that would spell out trust God, not money. They'd burn money. They used to get dressed up into costumes. So they once all grew their beards and put on rags and chained themselves together and stood in shopping malls with like plaques that had like kind of fire and brimstone Bible verses on them. They've turned up at the Sydney Easter show in dressed as babies to try and like kind of send the message that we're all children before God. So they did a lot of performance art. Then they went to India and they did a lot of humanitarian work there. They went to the slums and like built facilities for people. They kind of built a concrete slab over the open sewer. And they did that for many years. They also did a lot of humanitarian work in Kenya. They kind of had a compound there where they had like education programs and taught people English. And then they kind of moved. They kind of were continually moving throughout the history. And then around 2010, I think, they had kind of experienced a lot of controversies. So from probably the periods of 2000 to 2010, there was a lot of media controversy where they were like accused of abducting people, kidnapping, had a lot of brush-ins with the law where they were kind of, in one case, there was a 16-year-old boy called Bobby Kelly who had gotten permission from his grandmother to go with the JCs for like a couple of weeks just to go and help them distribute their literature. And then suddenly it turned into this, Bobby Kelly's been kidnapped by them and they've forced him to join and can't leave. But obviously he had chosen, and his grandmother had given him permission to go and knew about it, knew the group. So there's a lot of things like that happening. And then the kidney thing happened, which we'll talk about that in a moment, where they were donating their kidneys to strangers, and that was creating a lot of controversy in Australia. And then they kind of hit a point where they were getting stalked by various cult busters or people that called themselves cult busters. And they decided that instead of trying to live with this constant harassment going on, that they would disband. So they would kind of all go off and say, all right, well, you're going to go do your own work on your own, and we won't have contact with each other for a while. And they went off and did that, but eventually started to come back together again. They still kind of had connections with one another, but they officially said that the JCs have disbanded and, you know, we no longer exist. But obviously they kind of still did continue, sort of. It's kind of a bit of an ambiguous area. And then in the last few years, they've gotten into online media. So they've gotten into YouTube videos and distributing that way and getting their message out there through the online realm. And that's what they do now, especially with COVID, when they can't go out and distribute. So they've doubled down on their online work. So that's where they are now.
Yep, and they're relatively small still in numbers, right, Jerry? Like, what would you estimate their membership is at the moment?
Maybe like from 80 to 100 people. It's a very rough estimate because there's always people coming and going. And I also don't know what happens in a lot of the other teams in different countries. So I don't know I only get it. That's the estimate from them.
Yep. And in Australia, how many would you say?
Maybe anywhere between 10 and 15 at any one time.
I guess it's because it's quite an extreme ask, you know what I mean? Like it's not something that you would just join lightly or if you weren't 100% committed, right? And that's probably turns a lot of people away to some degree. Yeah,
a lot of people are there for the first few months.
Yeah.
Because it's a really long process to join. Like you don't just turn up and you're joined. You have to like have a probation period. And in that time, people will slowly sell their possessions and, leave university or, kind of pay off their debts. So it's a very slow process. And so people just do it gradually. And then eventually some people just say, I can't do this anymore. And they move on or they go the full way.
Yep. Cool. And
that organizational aspect of it. So what you're saying is that there's a probationary period. Is that in literature or how is that determined?
It's not really in the literature. That's just something that I've understood from hanging out with them. There's a lot of things that they don't write about and you kind of have to be there when it's happening. And they're always changing rules and how they're structured because they don't ever want to get stuck on a structure. So they might occasionally they'll be like, oh, we're not going to do this way anymore. Let's do it another way.
I guess the nature of it though, it is a structure and there is a hierarchy.
Yeah, that's the thing. So that's like the insider account is that, they're anti-structure and anti-hierarchy, but academically, yes, there is definitely. There's a social organization there.
Yeah.
And there is a hierarchy and there is leaders and there's people that aren't leaders. So there is power, there is distribution of power within it. And you can kind of discussion about, well, is that wrong or is that right? But I think that there's power in every social context that we're in.
Absolutely.
We experience these things in our workplace or at university, in our families. So it's kind of like, is it worse than any other of these social contexts? Then
I don't think that's the point of it being negative or positive. But the reason I'm asking something like that is I think that it connects well. Excuse the noise, that's my fat cat jumping into the garage door. The reason why I ask is because it connects with Ronson's film and the disagreement that Ronson has with Dave McKay. And I don't think McKay quite understood or understands why Ronson had difficulties with him. So maybe we pivot into talking about the Kindney saga and then Ronson's film. So they give away all their possessions. How does that then connect with giving away kidneys?
It's a bit of a loose connection. So I don't think it's really to do with their doctrine.
Oh wait! Didn't Dave watch a video on an aeroplane or something about a little boy giving his kidney to his grandmother or something?
Oh,
And then he thought, wow.
That movie. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then he was inspired and he was like, oh, why can't we do that? And that's where it came from, I believe.
Yeah. That's the story. So I wouldn't connect. So I think it connected to a different idea that they have. So rather than it being about giving away what you have to others, I think it's more to do with the way that the JC's history has been for the last 40 years. So what they do is because they're always trying to come up with new ideas and new ways of distributing and new ways to do humanitarian work and help others. They have periods where they have projects. So they have okay, we're going to do this performance art on the street. And that's one project. And the next project will be, we're going to go to Kenya and we're going to teach people English. Oh, okay. The next project is, why don't we donate our kidneys? So I would interpret it more as a way of their kind of innovative modality of trying to find new ways to live out the teachings of Jesus, as they might put it. New ways to to manifest it in the world. And I think that's probably a better way to understand why kidneys.
Yeah. And in the Ronson documentary, I believe they invited him over because I think he'd had a more understanding perspective around sort of fringe groups, and they were hoping that by bringing him on board through the kidney journey that he might get ahead of the press and sort of project a story that showed them in a more positive light. Oh, wait, no. And then they're inviting the it was all very convoluted, but then they were going to invite the mainstream media that would attack them. But then they were hoping that Ronson's documentary would offer the alternate perspective and make them look harsh. I think I don't know, but the psychological kind of plan that Dave had through all of that seemed so bizarre.
Well, McKay,
and I think that's, yeah.
He was writing as an
alias.
An alias who was an ex-member or something attacking the group.
Yeah, he was posing as Anita Foster.
Yeah,
that's right.
So then Anita Foster was trying to manipulate the media to attack, and then so Ronson would then write a piece which was more positive, and then the shining light comes through about the group. It's really narcissistic. It's quite, I don't know if narcissistic is the right word, but it's it's quite controlling, and I think Ronson was surprised at that because he says that in the documentary.
Yeah. So the documentary. So what's the story? So what was I saying? I was just going to give an intro of what happened to the documentary. Basically, Ronson's just follows them during the kidney journey for each country because there's obviously lots of laws around donating. So I think they could do it in the US, but not in Australia.
Yeah, and he says the US model's better because the US model, there's a couple of members that are just at one end of the hallway. They find that there's someone that is able to receive the kidneys. So they go in, they have their kidneys removed, and then they go home, and then the recipients have the kidneys, and that's all good.
Yeah. But it's sort of following the journey of I don't know the lady's name, Jerry. Do you remember the main lady that's donating her kidneys at the beginning? Susan. So it's mostly about Susan trying to find the right donor, and she's putting ads on there, and then her meeting with, I think, 3 potential kidney receivers. And she does this whole kind of convoluted questionnaire about, the sort of things that she wants for that to find. And Ronson starts off, I think, by being quite on board, and then as it sort of keeps going, he starts to feel quite sorry for the people that are sort of being strung along with these kidneys, and think that Dave McKay is doing this more of a media stunt, and that Dave's not really thinking it through about it. And then it all goes really sour. The whole relationship just goes to shit. And then I think, McKay accuses Ronson of letting a woman die, that it's on the blood's on his hands, and sends this really creepy video saying that you basically killed this woman because I don't know, I couldn't really follow all the logic because it was so bizarre. But that was my understanding of the documentary.
What? Yeah. So the aspect of letting the woman die was because Ronson took exception to someone who can stand there and say that that person can live or die on the basis of giving up a kidney. Really, the kidney should be given, like if you're going to give a kidney, just give the kidney. Why are you sitting there interviewing two people and then deciding who is going to live and who's going to die on the basis of that, and pitting two people against each other? And what happens with Susan, who sits down with the woman in Scotland, and she says, I'm going to give it to this other guy, the kidney, but one of the other members might be giving a kidney. Did you want to start the whole process with them as well? And the woman from Scotland says, like, I can't be bothered. Like, and that's, the Scottish term of can he be bothered is, I can't be fucked. It's like, I don't want to know. And yeah, so Ronson then is taking exception to that part of it, and McKay then pulls back the whole experience and says, well, okay, yep, that woman, because you've got involved and because you're not positive about this, and you're attacking us on the basis of that the blood's on your hands.
Yep. I'd be interested. Oh, Jerry, I was going to be interested to see, like, does Dave ever talk about what happened? Like, does he have his own perspective of what happened? I'd be interested to know.
So I think some context is good here. So Dave started as a journalist, and a lot of the what they've done throughout the years has been a lot of media. So they do these performances or these stunts to get media attention. So in a way, the kidney donations was to get the media's attention, because I think they saw it probably as a utilitarian way, like, oh, if we raise awareness of it, more people will do it, more people will donate. So I think that context is probably needed. As for, like, their perspective on the documentary, I haven't really spoken to them specifically about that, or if I have, it hasn't been very much. So I don't actually know what they would say in response to that. Like,
it was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's
so yeah. It's like a hot topic.
Oh, a little bit robotic. We heard hot topic.
But yeah, I felt sorry for Ronson. He seemed like he was. Oh no, sorry. By how Dave McKay had flipped it like that. Is that working yet? Yeah,
you're working. You're back. You're lagging behind us. We're now up to the same time zone. So, actually, on robotic voices, why the hell does Dave make his voice robotic and deep in videos?
Well, two reasons. So initially, because the JCs had disbanded, and I'm putting that in quotation marks.
For the visual followers of today, there is quotation marks.
They didn't want people to know at first. When they started with the YouTube channels, they didn't want people to know that it was the JCs, and they didn't want, so that Dave didn't want it to be known that he's Dave McKay. But the reason that they've continued is because they've created this character called Voice, who is played by not just Dave but by other JCs, and they all have they're all male voices, and they're all lowered.
Is this the voice in the desert?
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I think it's to create a kind of like ubiquitous or neutral voice that anyone can take on, and take on the persona of voice, which is like
on camera.
Well, that's old videos. Now, like with the new Voice in the Desert videos, which is kind of the main videos, that's what they do. So there's previous videos of him doing it, probably back when he didn't want people to know who's Dave McKay, but now it's a persona, it's a character on their channel.
But Jerry, it's him on camera.
But not in the new videos.
No, I'm pretty sure
the old videos is him on camera and his voice is lowered.
Yeah.
No, but even in the Tara documentary, towards the end, his voice is lowered for sure. Yeah. Like when he's talking, he's like, at the end he does like a little summary. He's like, "Oh, and this is why we don't like so and so," and his voice has definitely been lowered.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Is they've at first it was to anonymize him, but now it's like continued on as this like, I don't know, to create this. It's persona now. It's voice.
It's so
character. Like
it's not actually. It doesn't actually make him anonymous because it's a response video and it's him. You can see it's him. It's him on the camera, and he's just lowered his voice. It's like someone putting on like a fake moustache, which is obviously that person, or a monocle. I'm not this person.
No. It reminds me of those when you'd call someone up with a ransom note, right? Like, my name is Tara. Like, if you do not come and pay this amount of money by this time, because like, and I get it, Jerry. Like, having a voice that you could use at any time that anybody could use for their videos makes sense, but not if there's a visual associated with it.
What video are we talking about with the visual?
So there's a video response in the Kidneys for Jesus at the end.
But even in the Tara video.
In the Tara video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his voice has been deepened on that.
Well, in the Kidneys for Jesus, that's like years. That's 2003, before any of their online work. Yeah, so it's before Voice in the Desert.
But he's still doing the lowering the voice thing, which is.
But I'm pretty sure even in the Tara video he does it.
Oh.
Unless his voice is just super, super deep.
No, because you can hear him at points where he's talking, and there's like it's lighter, and it's not. You can hear the decibel tones that is just it's being doubled over itself or something.
Anyway, we'll investigate that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nah, we won't.
No, we won't. But anyway, do we want to talk more about that, or do we want to talk about the Tara video? Oh, do you want to talk more about Ronson?
So him taking exception to McKay also flows through with something else, which we touched on a little bit, which is the organizational structure of it, and what Ronson, I don't know if he uses the term, but the slippery nature of Dave, where he's just trying to get an authentic view. So the point of Ronson and the point of people like I don't know, Safran and those type of journalists that we've spoken about the last couple of episodes is trying to get this authentic experience to sit down with someone. And Ronson starts his film by saying that this documentary started off with being a lighthearted look at Christians who are giving up kidneys for Jesus, and if that's what it was, that would have been a positive experience for him, because he would have been able to show that this group is actually authentic and it's all good. The manipulation of Ronson, I think, is the falling point of McKay. So whether he's using his previous media experience or not, it didn't fly well with Ronson. And where there's the video of the Fox News report, so maybe if we jump into that. So there's a trial that's going on inside a room, and then there's friends of the person outside, but they're actors, you said, Jerry?
So
Jon.
Do you want me to tell the full story of why they're there?
Yes.
Okay,
please.
So what happened was, so this is going to confuse me because the names are so similar. Jon Ronson.
Who's
Jon, sorry, I'm really confused. So a young JC member who was turned 18, joined the JCs. And that was fine. And then he went back with two other JC members to his house to collect some of his possessions. And while they were there, his father and his brother bashed up one of the JCs. So the whipping trial was a response to the fact that the police didn't do anything about it. So the bashing was actually filmed on a camera. So they had evidence of it happening, but the police heard the word cult and they didn't want to do anything about it. So this is their way of like publicizing and bringing attention to the fact that this happened and there's been no justice. And the guy who was bashed was seriously injured. Like pretty much he has lifelong damage from that event. So what they wanted to do was they had a mock trial in this room, and then they were in lieu of the family not being there, they took upon themselves the punishment of that event. So it was a kind of this ritualistic way of dealing with the injustice of it and trying to find a way to reconcile what happened. So that's why they're whipping each other, is they're taking on the punishment. So they invited Fox News to cover the story, and what the JCs told me is that the Fox News had these. The father is real who comes up. So they come up to the hall and they have to lock the doors because the father and two of Jon of the kids' friends have turned up. And so as they're leaving, the JC that joined says, "I've never seen you before in my life." And they kind of film that to be like, "Oh, look, he's brainwashed. He doesn't even recognize his friends." But then later, I was told by the JCs that they were actors. He didn't actually know who they were. That's why he said, "I've never seen you before in my life," because he actually hadn't. So that's what I was told. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Yeah. So that's why that happened.
Yeah. Okay. Quite weird.
Yeah.
I don't know, the report of how it's done and this constant drive to try and get media attention for a group which is quite small by Dave, I think misses the authenticity of the group, because it seems to be a striving for media attention or attention at large for whatever reason. And I don't quite understand the purpose, because it's not proselytization and it's not organizational. So is it narcissistic? Is that what the whole purpose of the group is? Is this Dave's plaything to create, or what's the mission here?
So I don't think it's narcissism, because so the narrative that gets attached to groups like this is that the charismatic leader stands at the center, kind of pulling the strings and creating the world around them. But when you're actually in the group and you do meet them, you realize that a lot of the decisions and a lot of the ideas aren't coming from Dave. Some do, and I'm not discounting the fact that Dave does have a lot of power and that he is a very big personality in that community. But I think that you also have to regard the agency of the people within that community, that they have a voice, they have their own ideas, and they have their own motivations of things that they want to do. So to look at it,
yeah.
Pardon?
It becomes a group think. It's a community. They call it community, and it becomes this group think. Using the 1984 term, so it's a.
I don't know if I'd say groupthink, because then that kind of implies that they're not acting as individual agents and deciding for themselves what they think. It's kind of makes it sound like they're just agreeing and yes, that is exactly what I think, which I know does happen to a certain extent. People tend to want to agree with the group, and I know that's group psychology, but I also don't want to discard the agency that that the community members have, and that they don't want to be thought of as mindless zombies, because they're not. They're all people that have made decisions, and they're all navigating their individual thoughts and motivations with the community's motivations. And I think that that's the nuance that needs to be remembered. It's a navigation between individual and structure that goes on. And in some cases, maybe people do kind of go, oh, okay, I have a different thought, but I'm going to go with what the group says. But people do speak out. People do disagree. That's the other thing. So I don't think framing it as one person's kind of narcissistic journey really captures the complexity and nuance that goes on. It's like there's no simple way of understanding this group. It's always nuanced. It's always complex. So I think I genuinely believe that their motivations to get more people to donate kidneys so that people can have quality of life and live, I genuinely think that was their motivation. Are
they still doing it?
Pardon?
Are they still doing it?
No, I don't think so. I haven't heard about it. I don't think.
So, yeah, if that was their motivation, they would still be doing it.
Well,
I think Jerry did say before that it was also to get the media attention, right, Jerry?
Yeah.
Like you said that just before, that was an aspect.
Yeah. So the other aspect is they probably do want people to. They want to raise attention about themselves as a group. But that's the thing, is that they don't do things for long periods. They don't like getting into doing the same thing all the time. So they like to move on. And and also I think the thing with the kidneys is that it was causing a lot of difficulty because, there was other members that went and donated in different countries after the documentary. And that in itself was generating difficulties for the community.
Yeah, it seems. I know you're saying that there's this group aspect and there is room for disagreement and such, but there is a charismatic leader that is the head of this group, and everyone is sort of not just following that person, but they are surrounding that person or being close to that person. So it'll be interesting to see when Dave's getting on in the years. He's 70 now, you said? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So what happens in the next 20 to 30 years when the leader's no longer there? Where do they go and what happens? And is there going to be a succession of leadership or how it will change? In the other videos we watched a number of people that were attacking the JCs, and they've got their own forms of Christianity and their own forms of internet engagement.
Televangelism.
Yeah. So it's not even televangelism, because this is the thing that I don't understand quite about it, because I've studied Abrahamic faiths, and generally they want to get more members because you want to save those members. That's your main modus operandi. But the JCs are not interested in that. It's almost like they view themselves better and more heralding of the truth, and they just want to tell everyone about that they've got the truth and you can't have it because we've got it. Which is a strange thing. It's different.
Well, but I mean, they still want people to join. They obviously think that their way is the correct way. Like, you don't think that they're wanting people to take up watch the videos and be inspired to join?
Oh, I think the mentality is here that they like being the small fish, which is shocking, and they want to continue doing that.
You think it's like veganism, Ben, like going out in the streets and like showing up like
It's your
dead
vegan
animals.
Market. There it is. It's your vegan markets.
So is that what you think? Like they're showing dead calves while people are walking out of the butchers as like a kind of what do you call that word? Like smugness. That there's a smugness of like, you'll never be as good as we are. Like just like ordinary Christians will never be as Christian as we are.
Yeah,
like,
and I think
is that what you see that there?
Yeah, and I think that if they got too big, they would be a large organization, and then that would go against what they actually view themselves as, so then they would splinter again.
I think that's an interesting perspective, but I guess, I don't know, like, I think to join is just such a big task. I don't know. I think that the people that do join, I mean, that's such a huge commitment. I could never imagine myself doing it. I don't know.
If you look back through history, say the life of St. Anthony was written bloody in, 200 AD, of monks that have gone into the desert and given up everything. From there, you've got people that climb up pillars. You know, Simon of Stylites is actually climbing up a pillar, sitting on top of a pillar, being a monk and being brought food all the time. And then that creates this monastic community through Christianity, at least. And I know it predated. There was Jewish monasticism before that, and both on the masculine and the feminism aspect of it. That's giving up everything, and that's actually giving up everything. It's giving up connection with people. It's absolutely, it's going even further than what the JCs have done. I don't think it's impossible to do that, because there's more monks in the world today in every religion than there is the number of JCs.
So you think that there's a disingenuity in the way that they're doing, that they're not forsaking ego or something like that, Ben? You think they're missing something?
Yeah, I think that there's, I just fail to grasp the point, aside from sitting there in the corner saying we're better than you. That's what I think it is. And I think it's a nice community, and I know there's probably nice members that are part of it, and they do some good in the world. There's no doubt about that. They do free labor, and there would be a connected community. But in the end, it's a group of friends that are following around a single charismatic leader that isn't interested in getting any more members, but is interested in being the loud voice in the room.
I don't know if that's the case. Like, I think they do want members, and I think they do want to grow. I honestly don't think that for them it's all about Dave. I think for most of them it's about the concept of the JCs. It's about the community as this this ideal of what it gives, you know. I think I think you kind of do have a point in that, like, the amount of kind of real Christians in the world is meant to be small. Like, when like bringing in the kind of eschatological aspect, like there isn't that many people that are you know, warriors of Christ. I don't know what the right term is.
This is in there.
There is there is this dynamic of they are going to be the martyred minority who hold the truth, and the rest of the world are going to take the mark of the beast and give in to mammon. So there is that dynamic. So in a way, you do have a point, but I don't think that for most of them, maybe some of them, I don't know, I can't speak to every single one. Maybe they don't see it as a Dave cult. They see it as, I'm following the teachings of Jesus. I'm going to forsake all because that's what Jesus said to do. I like being in a community, and this is the best
with these
thing
people
for me.
that care about me 24/7 and are in this warming, nice environment. And I get that. I totally understand that, and I think that that's right. I think when it gets down to it, though, when you see the actions and you see the actions of Dave, that the most interest here is getting the highlight of the group, and then moving on to the next highlight and the next highlight, and it continues. They've done so many different things. Like you're saying, you know, they've done the money stunts, and then there's the crawling. Was it crawling across the desert or walking across the Australian desert with nothing?
Oh, he also did the hunger strike, Ben. I forgot about that.
The hunger strike, where he was eating anyway, or drinking or doing something.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't eat for like.
Well, he was having
days.
sustenance.
Was he?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Because there's photos of him sitting on a chair with like water bottles and stuff next to him, and drinks next to him.
Yeah, he's drinking water. He wasn't eating food.
The hunger strike, not a thirsty strike.
What else
Yeah.
was he drinking anything else?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think he cheated.
I think
I don't know. Is there something so wrong, Ben, about like wanting to promote or like show your ideas, like the fact that there's a performative aspect to what they do? I don't know what that necessarily
No,
discredits.
I don't think there is, and I don't think that that's a problem. But when you're saying that you are being authentic and that there is a level of truth to this, but then you peel away the layers of the onion and it shows that you're trying to manipulate a situation to be perceived in a certain way, I think that's an issue.
But isn't that all like media? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I don't know, Jerry. Like
public relations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
and so the PR stunt that Dave has done here is getting in the way, I think, of what some of the members and what maybe his own theology actually is asking for. To be honest in whatever view of Christianity or whatever view of Jesus that you're following, I think that there's just this other stuff that's getting in the way.
So they're not being authentic to themselves.
Yeah.
But what does that mean though? Like the reality of all this is that it's all a construction. They've constructed this religious world. Like why do they have to follow like a certain set of rules, or why can't they do things creatively or innovatively? Like there is no authenticity really. It's just a group that is doing certain things and believing certain things. And okay, like there might be contradictions, but there's contradictions in every worldview and hypocrisy in the things that we do. And that's something that happens.
Not every religious leader is then acting as another person and writing as a woman and then putting out videos and threatening someone, and like it's bizarre.
Yeah, but you have to remember that again, like Dave isn't the community.
I think
he's just a face that is, and he does have power, but like there's a whole other group of people there that he doesn't represent.
Why don't we shift to the Tara documentary?
Oh yeah,
I think we're going around in circles.
Tara's documentary.
Tara. Let's go back.
Tara.
Let's move it to Tara.
Not this Tara.
Because I think
the other Tara.
Yeah, I think what it is, and I'll just quickly bounce off that though, because it's sort of like once you say you're like the best of something, so like the best sort of Christianity, there's a certain idea there that how do I explain it? That then you expect a certain standard. I think what Ben's maybe seeing is that there seems to be a bit of a difference between the sort of what they're preaching and how they are. But I mean, yeah, that's like so. They're just flawed. People are flawed. I think Dave McKay is a very flawed and strange individual. So, I don't think would necessarily be the best person to be the poster boy of a particular group. But as Jerry was saying, anyway, I'm not really wrapping anything up. So let's move on to the next one. So yeah, that was just a ramble.
Yeah,
I had no idea what I was saying. But
yeah. Okay, right, let's go.
Yeah. Tara in the desert. This was an interesting one. This whole story seemed very bizarre, and I felt sorry for the girl, but the way that they did it just seemed so robotic and like, I don't know. It was a weird documentary. Do you want to tell us about it, Jerry?
The interview technique, we were speaking about this before we started recording. So if you give a background, because Tara.
Tara.
So be interesting to hear your view. And you're featured in the documentary. I saw a picture.
I'm in the background, an image.
But yeah. Your name's not there, which is like a terrible oversight. So if Dave's listening, I think you should update the documentary and point to esteemed, what does Wikipedia call you? Anthropologist or something? Or
I don't know.
Something.
It was also weird because Dave was also in the background of that photo. So it was like a photo used to explain the relationship between Dave and Tara as being close, and then he's in like the background in what looks like to be like a wheelchair, or a chair,
No, that's
and you and her at the front.
That's the hunger
He's
strike.
like lurking in the background.
Yeah, well, that
Is it
that
from
was
the
the
hunger
point.
strike?
Yeah, it was during the hunger strike.
Yeah.
I think that's why they wanted the photo, because they wanted to indicate that Tara was connected to Dave or something. I think, I don't know. So the story goes. So so Tara came back to visit her family who live in Texas, to go to her brother's wedding. And she'd just been on a 35-hour flight and arrived to the ranch, which is, I think, like 60 miles to the next town, or some ridiculous distance.
Nowhere, eh? Like when she's explaining how far it is away, and then it's then further away, and it's like a 6-mile driveway.
Yeah.
Something they've got.
Just completely isolated.
Sounds terrible place to live, but yeah.
yeah. Why did they live there? I don't know. I was confused. I was also confused at the fact that they all lived in RVs, but they had a guest house, but they didn't live in their house.
Yeah, why not just move the RVs next to the road? Like,
why not live in a house? Like
6 miles away. Like, why would you not just? It's bizarre. Anyway, I
don't know. It is weird. So she goes there, and they don't let her sleep. And
but she joined the Jesus.
Oh yeah, so
Christians,
she's a JC
like a year
at this
ago.
point. Yeah, like a year or 2 years ago.
And she didn't want to see her family. She's just email correspondence.
Yeah, so she just had emailed them, and she thought that they were great, like that they were just completely accepting of her. So that's why she felt like she could go and visit them, because they had been really, amicable. So she goes back to the ranch, and they take away her laptop and her phone, so she can't contact the other JCs. And then they keep her up all night, and they tell her that she's going to talk to Rick Ross in the morning. So Rick Ross, he's the cult buster. And the JCs have had run-ins with Rick Ross before. He's been very vocal against them. And so she stays up all night. They keep talking to her, so she can't sleep. And then in the morning, Rick Ross comes and sits down with her. And another thing I should mention is that Tara's father has a history of abuse. So she mentions in it that she used to get beaten with a belt as punishment, and that her brother was also physically abused.
And the mama too, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but it's all in the documentary. So there's you have to remember that there is this kind of risk of violence kind of underlying this scenario. And so she sits with Rick Ross, and he starts telling her that she's got the wrong interpretation of Christianity and and that she needs to leave the JCs. And then the first time her father and Rick Ross step outside. So Tyra takes that opportunity to run away barefoot. So they've taken her shoes away. So she starts running down this 6-mile driveway with nothing.
She's done it
in her pajamas.
She looks
barefoot.
For her shoes. She keeps saying in the documentary that she looks for her shoes, and it keeps going to this shot of her looking in the cupboard for some shoes.
Yeah. Where are the shoes?
Yeah, and then she says that as she was let in, she took off her shoes, and that was the last time she saw her shoes.
But you think about in that scenario, shoes are the most important thing. It is.
But it's funny, the highlighting choice of the documentary, and then going back to the shocking elements that are there. Really, the shocking element is that your family's fucked up, and they've driven you 6 miles in the middle of nowhere, and then they want to keep you awake all night.
Yeah.
And convert you back to whatever way of thought there is. That's what there is to it. But then the shoes keep coming up. The shoes. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes.
Yeah.
Running
so she
down
runs off, and obviously her feet are getting blistered. and her brother follows, I think her brother or her father follows in the car and makes her get back into the car and drives her back to the ranch. So then she sits again with Rick Ross, and then her mother gives her a pair of gumboots to wear, and thinking that, oh, this is a clumpy shoe that you can't run in. And also, another thing I should add, Tyra is an excellent runner. She is one of the fastest runners in the community. So, yeah.
Wait, how do you know? You race each other?
Yeah, when I stay with the JCs, we go running every day, or we have a competition and we all do PBs and compete.
Is that to practice running away from your family when they kidnap you? They do like whole kidnapping drills. All right, run. Here comes your father with a shotgun, run. That's awful. Anyway, so she has the gumboots, and then she escapes again, right?
Yeah. And she runs these gumboots and gets onto the main road. She's in the hot, Texan heat. She's had no water. And is like, I'm just going to make it to the next town. And there's people driving past, but no one's picking her up because one of her family's driving behind her, waving at them to keep going. And there's also elements where they're presenting water to her to try and convince her to get back in the car and saying, we promise we'll take you back to your friends if you just get in the car. Which if I was her, I definitely wouldn't. I wouldn't trust them. So eventually she comes across a border patrol officer because they're quite close to the Mexican border. And he can't really do anything, but he takes her to this roadside cafe, petrol station or something.
Diner or something.
Yeah, and she is able to contact the JCs from there. And so some old lady kind of overhears what's going on and offers to let her stay at her house. And so Tyra stays at this woman's house but leaves in the middle of the night because she's scared of this woman kind of being convinced by a family that she shouldn't let Tyra leave, which I think actually it sounds a bit dramatic, but I honestly think that probably was a good idea, that she kind of just left and the JCs picked her up and she's fine. But yeah, that was the documentary.
So the interview technique is a bit strange.
What, Ben?
The interview technique was pretty comical. It
was the reenactments were Today Tonight, or those terrible reenactments where they're it'll just be the hands gripping or zoomed in or just really strange footage. But I guess what else are they going to put in with it? They obviously don't have any footage from the thing, so. Also, the
was 48 hours, and then it's craziness over that 48 hours.
Yeah. And such a dangerous situation. You do wonder if she had stayed and continued to say, I'm not going to listen to what you say, if it had escalated, or how long they would have kept her there for. I think it feels like it could have been a lot worse.
It also just seems like a really counterintuitive strategy to get your family members back. Wouldn't you want it to be fun time, wonderful time when they visited, and so that they see what they're missing, and you just really be a great atmosphere. And then if they decide to go back, I mean, the more you push, the more they're going to be this is exactly what the other side would do. Do you know what I mean? This is they've warned me about this, So it just seems so stupid by the family to think that sleep deprivation or something would work. Did Rick Ross have times when that has worked? Do you know what I mean? I just think it would make it so much worse.
Must have, he's got a business based on that, and he must have some success stories.
I don't know.
But I think because they're coming at from the angle that Tyra hasn't made a rational decision as an adult. They're coming at as she's been coerced and brainwashed, and she has no rationality, and it's been taken away from her. So we have to
brainwash her back.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's not just oh, we have to make her believe that this isn't true. We have to make her also adopt our version of Christianity instead because that version of Christianity is wrong. So in a way, it's like a heresy problem. Like it's not just about, oh, this is a weird group. It's no, they're heretical and they need to be stopped.
Yep. And they're all.
I don't know.
So they were from an evangelical background, or what was their background?
I don't actually know. I can't remember. Christian, I think. But I'm not sure.
Well, that's everyone is. So that's
yeah, exactly. They live in Texas. Like, why would they live there?
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of follow up, Jerry? Like, is Tara back in Australia now?
I don't know. I have no idea where she is.
I'd be interested to know whether she is still in contact with her family, or if she's been able to repair it at all, or what's the story.
I mean, I think what I've heard is that she really wants to. She wants reconciliation, which is very graceful, I think. But yeah, that's all I've heard. I don't know if they've been in contact or what the end of the story is.
So this whole thing happened after the hunger strike, yeah?
Yeah, months after.
Yeah, and I also thought what was interesting about the documentary is that at the end, Dave does like a little follow-up about how this is the documentary and it's from their perspective and stuff, which I think would have been great in the beginning of the documentary rather than at the end, right? Like some sort of disclaimer, like not that it matters, but I just thought it was an interesting choice to put that at the end, whereas I think it would have been more effective to give a sort of heads up about the context of the film in the beginning.
I think they don't. I think they also don't want to frame because people, if they see that disclaimer, they go, everything that is said from this point on is incorrect and a lie.
Yeah,
that's how people will view it. So I understand why they do it at the end. Like it's still there, but at least it's like people can watch it thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a true story to me. I don't know why she would have made that up. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like it would be a strange story to create out of nothing. And you know, and then I know that Rick Ross did a little statement saying that he didn't do anything illegal and they didn't hold her against her will. But like, why would anybody run outside of their house if it wasn't serious? You know what I mean?
Well, even if they didn't hold her against her will, she's in the middle of nowhere with no shoes,
with no vehicle, nothing,
and no vehicle, no ability to sleep, no ability to move. It's
exactly
just a shitty experience. I liked at the end of the video how the clip art pop-ups. So there's things that pop up in the JC's video. So if anyone listening hasn't seen any of their videos, they're so I say that they're not the best made, but there's interesting like cartoons and clip art images that pop up a lot of the time in them, and it's a very 90s, maybe early 2000s style of video production, and that wasn't there throughout the whole documentary. It was very like 60 Minutes Today Tonight style throughout the whole thing, and then at the end there's the back to the things.
Jerry, did Tara edit herself? Because I know that she did a lot of the media work for the JCs.
I was interested in that too.
Yeah, did she do that herself?
I don't know. She might have. But yeah, there's a lot of them do that now. So, because they've got nothing else to do now in COVID, they're all like improving their computer skills.
Yeah,
so maybe.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I said this off camera, but I'll say it again, that it's ironic. So we watched another documentary from what they called Forsaking All to Follow Christ, Servus Christi. So Servus Christi is a guy that talks about fringe Christian groups. Is that his MO, Jerry?
I mean...
Or he just hates the JCs?
He does, it is a theme. Like, I think Servus Christi, or as some like to call it, Service Mammon. I think he does do other videos about other groups that he doesn't like.
Okay, yep.
And he has a website that he also posts articles about, like, kind of his own version of his kind of preachings of Christianity, and then every once in a while there's a video about him criticizing this person. Or,
yeah. So he kind of...
preacher, yeah? He's like a...
It seemed like a preacher style. So he was just going through all the different reasons why he thinks the JCs have misinterpreted the Bible. And so he looks at certain key verses that they seem to imply that Jesus says, you don't need money. And he kind of says, well, if you look at it in the context, it was like there were often individual tasks for that person to do, not for everyone to follow, sort of thing.
Yes.
Which was sort of, I didn't always necessarily agree, but I think he did a pretty good job of looking at the verses in detail. But what was so funny is that one of the things he says is hypocritical of the JCs is that they invest a lot of money in things like editing. And I was saying to Ben and Joe before that it's so funny because the editing is quite bad. So I don't think there's much money being invested in that. Yeah. But what did you think, Ben, of the? Because I know you and Jerry probably both have a bit more knowledge of the Bible than I do. Like, did you think the kind of the discussion on the hermeneutics and about monetary value was valid? Like, I don't know.
Yes and no. So you got to build in the context that, like, Christianity is obviously a religion that came at the turn of the millennia in Israel or Judea. Inside a Roman context, with the money being controlled by either the temple, so everything focused in Judaism towards the temple, and the temple being almost the the pool of resources for the Jewish people, and then the Roman taxation of that. So all of that is just missed in the eschatological understanding, and then you've got a choice of Christians 100 or 200 years later, keeping those specific passages in that specific way in the Bible, and then what that means for the new Roman empire, and being accepted as a religion. So all of that historical aspects is just always missed by modern Christians talking generally from an evangelical perspective, and they're usually American, although they can be European, but they're usually talking this perspective of their own understanding of capitalism in the world today, and it's completely different. So yeah, there are some elements where he is pointing out quite rightly that there's choices of the JCs in following certain Bible verses and ignoring other things, but there's entire pictures being missed by all of these people of the historical aspect of historical Christianity, which is long gone.
And it did seem to me too like he was really picking and choosing. Like I don't know much about it, but I definitely think Jesus would, if he'd had a choice between people living and donating their time and energy and living a sort of poor life preaching the word of God versus someone that's just like rolling in cash, I do think it'd be more than the other side, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. But you're using the same methods. The thing with Servus Christi is he's using the same methods as the JCs, but just arguing a different perspective.
Yeah, it's
like, well, okay, yeah, like so they're not right, but your version of possibly not right is more right. Like we're talking about grey areas here between elements of an itinerant Jewish preacher who lived 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, it's true. And he also says like one of the verses he said, oh, it's a metaphor, like it's allegorical. And it's like, well, come on, like you can't it's either a lot of it's allegorical or it's not. You can't pick and choose. That's a
big trigger. That's my whole honest thesis. That's what I wrote about Origin, the whole thing. So as soon as I heard that, I'm like, fuck. Why just say that word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just sort of discredits the whole like non-allegorical approach he had previously had, right? To me it did.
Yeah, but it's a misunderstanding of how the perspectives stayed. Like there's Midrash Pesharim, which is like hidden meanings to texts. And it's texts that need to be worked to understand what's under there. It's not this simplistic thing of going, oh, this doesn't suit us anymore historically, so we're just going to call it allegorical.
Yeah.
That's just dumb. That's it. And it misunderstands what the whole point is. I honestly don't believe that in a synagogue 2,000 years ago and someone was sharing the story of Moses and the destruction of the world and rebuilding it, I don't think those people took that literally. I honestly don't. I think that there is deeper understanding which has been missed, that when you have a community completely centered around a religious perspective and knowledge being spread amongst the book, and then book being understood as a bag of scrolls and being completely mixed up and jumbled, all of that is mixed with the way that we view the world, where everything now is scientific, and there has to be a certain order and structure and way of understanding, and things can either be true or not true. It's very different. I don't know, Jerry, what did you think? Because your education from theology is different to mine, so and you've experienced sitting down with these people. Is Dave's view of Christianity, there's lots of grey areas, with Bible passages and words?
Look, I don't have any theological education. So to me, it's all just interpretations, and there's no better or worse interpretation. So I just don't really care about, does this Bible passage mean this or that?
They don't care either, do they? The JCs, they're not.
Oh, they do. They do. They do have their own. I don't know where they get their kind of mix of theological discourse, but there is certain frameworks that they're interpreting things as, and I don't really know. I just kind of just nod and oh, okay, is that is that
do
what
they
it means?
do a lot of Bible study and stuff, Jerry? Is that a major aspect of what they do?
They do a lot of Bible study, but I don't know where they get their views from. So it's like a mixture of things that they've absorbed from other sources, but then kind of their own interpretation of that interpretation. Yeah.
And then the last video, I don't think we should bother talking about the voice in the desert exposed with Kylo Ren in it. That was such a bizarre. We watched some weird documentary where this guy was dressed up as Kylo Ren. Some was he Ukrainian or something? Estonian? Romanian. And then it was just a video, one picture of Dave McKay with horns and being zoomed in and zoomed in. So I didn't find that very helpful.
And it was
what was that, Jerry?
Repeating, who are you, Dave? Who are you?
Yeah. And then the deep voice, get away from me. I don't want any pictures. What the hell's going on?
What was I going to say? Something about... Oh, yeah, there's just not a lot of material about them either out there. There's not a lot of documentaries that they either haven't produced themselves or are really critical and going down the cult angle. There's not a lot of kind of balanced documentaries on them, is there, Joe?
No.
No.
I mean, they're very small, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a lot of academic literature on them, and not a lot of any other than critiques from cult busters. There's really only a handful of other sources about them.
Yeah. What do you think it is that Rick Ross hates so much about it? Is it because is there a large cohort of disgruntled ex-members that is that what's putting fuel on the fire, or he just hates Dave on a personal level?
Well, that's Rick Ross's career, is him going after heresy. So it's just
Christians in particular. Ex-Christian,
he is a
Christian related?
I think so. I don't know if I think he does anyone really. I think, So the JCs are just another group that fits into his understanding of what is a bad, evil cult. So it's just part of, it's the economy that he trades in. He trades in I'll come and fix your misled young adult, and you can pay me for that. So
I just was wondering whether there was something sort of special, or they had something particular with the JCs.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There might be, but I don't know. I haven't looked into Rick Ross very, very deeply. I've just looked at who he is and his history.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I listened to the podcast as well, the Sue and
Roland?
Roland. Yeah, that interview. So they're ex-members now?
Yeah, they're ex-members like 10 or more years ago.
So they're still living the same way as JCs basically live.
Yeah, I think so. I think they have a website and there's like kind of similarities in what they do. Sue in particular, she's kind of continued on with the whole kidney donation thing and has donated. Yeah, she's donated other parts of her body. I think I wrote it down.
Roland was annoyed, she said, that when she donated her liver or part of her liver.
Yeah.
And their theory was that it's okay because people who donate their liver generally live longer than people that don't donate their liver because they're healthier people, which, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sample size of that, but yep, that's a view.
Yeah, that's an idea that's out there. But it's like, it's her body, like she can do what she wants, like that's her prerogative. Like she's helping people.
But they seem quite nice people, I guess, like from what they were talking about and their view of the world. I don't know. They actually, on a side thing, it's funny that they've got a camper van and I don't know if you caught it. At the end of the interview, they're talking about how they drove to the interview and their camper van only takes like reworked vegetable oil.
Oh, yeah.
Convert it, and they're not sure if it's going to run or they hope it will, and they'll see how they go, and they'll just get like donations of vegetable oil.
Yeah, I didn't really understand how that worked. I don't. It's like, can you run a van out of vegetable oil? Is that real?
I don't think it's good for the engine, but yeah, okay.
Okay, that's another idea that's there.
Yeah.
Works for them.
Yeah.
But what we should mention, what's interesting about that interview is that they are being interviewed by Bobby Kelly, who was the 16-year-old boy who was allegedly kidnapped by Sue and Roland all those years ago. So, which he wasn't kidnapped. Spoiler alert. So it's interesting that like all these years later, as an adult, he's talking to them and kind of talking about that event and how they live currently.
Is he still a member, Jerry?
No, he was never a member. He was just like hanging out with them and wanted to participate in distributing and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Ben, what do you keep eating and then spitting out? What the hell are you doing?
I'm not spitting out anything. I'm eating gold.
I see you spit them out. Take them out of your mouth.
It's me putting them in my mouth.
Oh, right.
Yeah. See, what happens when you grab food? You gotta then put it in your mouth. No, so Joel's, see?
Oh.
There's another visual thing which Mark is going to like. JOL.
Ben is holding up a packet of Joel's to the camera.
And if you look at how small they are, this is why like it's kind of awkward to eat them. Like they're very
tiny. They are small. All right. Is that it? Are we all done?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. It was cool to talk about it straight after Scientology, because I think that there's definitely some similarities there. In some ways, I think they both have at times been misrepresented in the media, and at other times they've both had some controversies as well. Not that they're the same, but I mean, almost actually with the monetary aspect, quite opposite. But anyway.
Yeah, I think that it's just important to remember that, I'm not saying that everything the JCs do is like, oh, they're wonderful and they've never made any mistakes. Like, they have made mistakes and they do sometimes do things that I'm like, okay, like, that's like, I don't know how I feel about that. But the point is that it's not unique to them as a cult. It's just humanity. Like, you have some people that do things sometimes and it doesn't have the best consequences. And I think it's just, important to remember that there's a lot of complexity and you can't put it into simple narratives of
and regardless, I think forcibly removing people and whether they are being an aspect of brainwash or not, I just think it totally disrespects that person had any sort of individual willpower to join in the first place, and just seems just totally unethical to just sort of kidnap people away from it, and vice versa for the cults to kidnap if they had people in the first place. But I imagine it would be pretty easy to remove yourself from the JCs if you wanted. You just, buy a fast car and just zoom past the buses or something. You know what I mean? Like there would be ways.
Yeah, like there is ways. I mean, it is difficult when you have given everything you own and all your money.
True.
To then be like, all right, bye.
Yeah.
I understand that would be very hard, but people still leave, and sometimes the JCs do help members leave, so they will give them money to allow them to like maybe buy a ticket home or something, so they're not completely like callous and like, okay, get out, like you're on the street now, bye.
Yeah Cool.
Yeah.
Any last minute things, Ben? You want anything?
No, but actually, just one last thing: the Sue and Roland, they campaigned for Julian Assange's expedition, which is interesting. So it sort of crosses over to internet censorship and openness in the world, which maybe we can return to in a future episode.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
cool.
Bye, everybody. Stay safe. Stay safe.
In these challenging times, stay safe.
Bye.